Breaking overnight, about 13,000 auto workers are officially on strike. As promised, at the stroke of midnight, they walked off the job at factories in Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri. The United Auto Workers Union couldn't reach a last-minute agreement with Ford, GM, and Stellantis for better pay and benefits.
It's the first time in the union's 88-year history its workers are striking at all three companies at the same time. Let's bring in Scripps News Washington correspondent Joe St. George, joining us live to give us some perspective on this strike, what it means for you. Joe, what could the impact be here in Florida, and then, of course, the impact nationally?
Yeah, I think the biggest question is how long does this thing go? Because what we saw overnight was only 3 plants be impacted. How quickly does that turn into 6 plants or 9 plants if the UAW doesn't get what they want? This is the first time a strategy like this is being deployed. As you mentioned, the first time all 3 are being impacted, the big 3 automakers in this country. Also the first time we're seeing something, 1 plant here, 1 plant there, 1 plant there. What is the long-term strategy? Here in Washington, a big question is what does the involvement from President Biden look like? Obviously, a lot of the estimates have that if this is prolonged, you'll see car price increases in Florida and around the country. It could have reverberations across the economy. An Anderson Economic Group said a 10-day strike could cost the U.S. economy over $5 billion. We spoke with Jared Bernstein, one of the president's top economists at the White House, about how involved the president's going to be.
At CEA, the Council of Economic Advisors, which I chair, we are always looking at every possible impact on the economy of events like this, but many others as well. We're not ready to give any kind of a readout on that because right now the president's view is that both sides need to stick at the table, try to get a win-win agreement out of this. As the situation evolves, we may have more to say.
The president speaking with the UAW leadership last night, certainly not weighing into the degree that he has in some previous strikes as of yet from the White House. It's a complicated political issue. Some of their demands involve the electrical vehicle industry, concern about that transition. Ford CEO previously said that building an electric vehicle requires 40% less labor. Obviously, President Biden is encouraging EV production around the country. There are concerns with that transition amongst the unions. So we'll stay on top of this. I think the biggest question is how long does this go? How many more plants potentially could be impacted, guys?
And Joe, there is, of course, a lot at stake economically, but the way that this all plays out could also have a huge impact on the future of unions in the country. You know, union membership is not what it was 70 years ago.
You're absolutely right about that. I think a big question is where do Americans stand with unions for how long? And there's some conflicting information on screen real quickly we can share with are currently in a union. That number's actually up about 200,000 from 2021. Over 60% of Americans, according to Gallup, support unions, support their mission. One of the failures of unions in recent years, not as many members as you mentioned. Only 1 in 10 Americans are a member of a union. That's a record low. But we are seeing a bit of a moment for unions in this country. They were able to secure big deals with UPS. Rail workers were able to secure a deal recently. We're seeing multiple strikes, and Americans still stand by them. Remember, the UAW isn't the only union on strike. The writers' strike out in Hollywood has been continuing on for weeks. So how long will this last? That's the big question. Remember, this is about retirement plans. It's about wages. It's very much about the future of the auto industry as the transition to the electric vehicles continues.
All right, he's Joe St. George, live in Washington, D.C. for us this morning. Certainly have a huge impact, this strike will, on all of us here in Florida and across the country. We'll keep you posted on whatever happens with it. Thank you, Joe.